They all thought I came to my ex-husband's wedding to
Derek,
cry and beg.
what is she doing here?
Even Derek smirked
Relax,
when he saw
Jessica.
me
It's
walk
just a
through
little
those
entertainment.
doors. His new bride clutched his arm a little tighter. His mother whispered to the guests beside her, and everyone looked at me with pity in their eyes. Poor Naomi, the woman who was not good enough, the woman who came crawling back to watch her replacement win. But nobody in that room knew what was about to happen. Nobody knew that the billionaire investor everyone had been trying to impress all evening was about to destroy Derek's entire life with a single sentence.
How
And
dare you
nobody knew
ruin
the
our
biggest
wedding with
secret
these
of all.
lies?
That billionaire, it was me. If you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, if you have ever been told you are not good enough, if you have ever hit rock bottom and wondered if life was worth living, this story is for you, because this is not just about revenge. This is about transformation, about finding strength you never knew you had, about building something beautiful from the ashes of everything you lost. By the end of this story, you will learn the one mindset shift that separates people who stay broken from people who rise stronger than ever. So if you are ready, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Drop a comment telling me your favorite comeback story, and share this with someone who needs to hear that their darkest chapter is not the end of their book. Now let us begin. They all thought I came to my ex-husband's wedding to cry and beg. Even Derek smirked when he saw me enter the Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom in my red dress. His new bride, Jessica, clutched his arm a little tighter. His mother, Patricia, whispered something to the guest beside her, and I watched them all turn to stare at me with pity in their eyes. Poor Naomi, the woman who could not give him children, the woman who was not good enough, the woman who came crawling back to watch the man who destroyed her marry someone else. But nobody in that room knew three things. First, the billionaire investor everyone had been trying to impress all evening, the one Derek had been bragging about for months. He was about to destroy Derek's entire life with a single sentence. Second, everything Derek owned, his company, his reputation, his future. I had already taken it all. He just did not know it yet. And third, the billionaire was not some rich uncle who had swooped in to save me. That billionaire was me, and I had earned every single penny myself. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the night when my perfect marriage revealed itself to be nothing but a beautiful lie. 4 years before that wedding, I was living what I thought was a happy life. My name is Naomi Carter. I was 32 years old, married for 5 years to a charming real estate developer named Derek Mitchell, and working as a restaurant manager at an upscale steakhouse downtown. I was an orphan. My parents died in a car accident when I was 14, and I was raised by my grandmother, Dorothy, until she passed away 2 years before this story begins. I had no siblings, no close relatives, no safety net. When I married Derek, I thought I was finally building the family I had always wanted. I was so incredibly naive. The night everything changed started like any other Tuesday. Derek was working late again, which had become more and more frequent over the past year. I was at home, trying to order a surprise anniversary dinner for us on his iPad because my phone was dead and charging in the bedroom. I was scrolling through restaurant options when a text notification dropped down from the top of the screen. The message was from someone named Jessica. It said, "Can't wait for tomorrow night. She has no idea. You are so bad." My hands froze on the screen. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a work joke. Maybe I was misreading the context. I should put down the iPad and ask Derek about it when he got home. But I did what so many of us do when we suspect something terrible. I went looking for more pain. I tapped on the message thread. What I found destroyed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Months of conversations, intimate photos, plans and promises. And worst of all, they were laughing about me, making jokes about how clueless I was, how pathetic. One message from Derek made my blood run cold. He had written, "She is so desperate for family approval. It is almost sad. Mom was right. She is pathetic." Jessica had replied, "At least she can't give you kids. Makes this easier." Derek's response, silver lining, I guess. I sat there in the darkness of our living room for 2 hours, reading through their entire relationship. 14 months. He had been sleeping with this woman for 14 months. Every anniversary dinner, every time he said he loved me, every night he claimed he was working late. Lies, all of it. When I heard his car pull into the driveway, I did not move. I just sat there with the iPad face down on my lap, waiting. Derek walked in, loosening his tie. He saw me sitting in the dark and sighed. Naomi, what are you doing sitting in the dark like that? I did not answer his question. Instead, I asked him something I already knew the answer to. Do you still love me? He sighed again, that annoyed sound he had been making more and more often lately. Naomi, it is late. Can we not do this tonight? Just answer me. There was a long pause. Then he said something that somehow hurt worse than the text messages. I care about you. But love, I do not know if I ever really knew what that meant. He was not lying. He was not making excuses. He was just being honest. And that honesty revealed something devastating. I was so unimportant to him that he could not even bother to lie. That night, I learned the most painful truth about some marriages. The opposite of love is not hate. It is indifference. It is being so insignificant to someone that they answer, I do not know when asked if they love you, and then casually ask what is for breakfast. I did not confront him about Jessica that night. I was too shocked, too broken, too confused about what to do next. Instead, I spent the next 3 days quietly consulting a divorce lawyer and gathering documents. I thought I was being smart. I thought I was protecting myself. I had no idea that Derek and his family had been planning my removal for months. 3 days after I discovered the affair, I came home from work to find a surprise waiting for me. Derek was sitting in our living room, but he was not alone. His mother, Patricia, was there wearing that cold smile I had learned to dread over 5 years of marriage. His father, George, sat beside her, looking uncomfortable, but silent as always. There was a man I did not recognize in an expensive suit, holding a leather briefcase. And sitting right next to my husband, her hand resting on his arm, was Jessica. She was pregnant, visibly pregnant, at least 4 or 5 months along. Derek stood up when I walked in. He did not look guilty. He looked relieved. Naomi, he said, we need to talk. I think you know Jessica. I could not speak. I just stood there, frozen, while my entire world collapsed around me. Patricia was the one who explained the situation. She had always been the one in charge. Sweetheart, she said with fake sympathy dripping from every word, you came into this marriage with nothing, and that is exactly what you will leave with. It is only fair. Over the next hour, I learned how thoroughly I had been betrayed. Derek had transferred all our joint assets into his company 6 months ago. He had convinced me to sign the paperwork by telling me it was for tax purposes. I had trusted him. I had not even read the documents carefully. The house we lived in, it was in his name. He had let me live there as a kindness. My car, a company lease, not mine. Our savings account, invested in Derek's business. Another document I had signed without reading because I trusted my husband. My grandmother's small inheritance, the only money I had in the world. Derek had convinced me to invest that too. For our future, he had said. I had nothing, absolutely nothing. And then Jessica spoke for the first time. I am sorry, Naomi, she said, not sounding sorry at all. But Derek deserves someone who can give him a family, a real family. She placed her hand on her pregnant belly and smiled. That was when I finally understood. This was not just an affair. This was a coordinated attack. Patricia had orchestrated the whole thing. She had never thought I was good enough for her son, and she had found a way to replace me with someone who met her standards, someone with family connections, someone who could give Derek children, someone who was not an orphan with nothing to offer. The lawyer handed me papers. I had 30 days to vacate the house. If I did not sign the divorce agreement, they would drag me through court for years. I would lose anyway, and I would be bankrupt from legal fees by the end. I signed. What choice did I have? I found an apartment 3 days before my deadline to leave the house. It was a tiny studio above a laundromat on the rough side of town. The heat worked sometimes. The water ran brown for the first 30 seconds every time I turned on the tap. The walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor's television through them like it was in my own room. The rent was $420 a month. I had $847 in my personal checking account. That gave me exactly 2 months to find a job before I would be homeless. I spent my first night in that apartment sitting on the floor because I did not have furniture yet. I had one box of personal items that Derek's family had let me keep. Everything else, everything I had accumulated over 5 years of marriage, was gone. I did not cry that first night. I was too numb for tears. Instead, I just sat there in the dark, listening to the washing machines rumble below me, wondering how my life had fallen apart so completely. The apartment had character. That is what the landlord had said when he showed it to me. In real estate terms, that means the toilet runs constantly and you develop a personal relationship with every cockroach. I named the biggest one Derek. Every night I would watch him scurry across the floor and think, at least this Derek is honest about being a pest. Finding work was harder than I expected. My previous employer, the upscale steakhouse where I had been a manager, had mysteriously decided they no longer needed my services. I later learned that Patricia had called in a favor with the owner. She was making sure I had nothing to fall back on. I applied for dozens of restaurant manager positions, server positions, hostess positions, anything. Most places never called back. The few that did seemed to change their minds after checking my references. Patricia's reach was longer than I had imagined. After 2 weeks of rejection, I was desperate. I started applying for jobs at places I had never considered before. Fast food restaurants, convenience stores, cleaning services. Finally, a small soul food restaurant called Soul Sisters agreed to interview me. It was not glamorous, but it was something. The owner was a woman named Caroline Washington. Everyone called her Carrie. She was 45 years old, African American, divorced with 3 kids, and she had built her restaurant from nothing 15 years ago. When I walked in for my interview, she took one look at me and said something I will never forget. "Girl, you look like someone ran over your dog, backed up, and ran over it again. Sit down. You need pie." I told her I did not have money for pie. She raised an eyebrow. Did I ask? Sit. She brought me a slice of sweet potato pie and a cup of coffee and sat down across from me. She did not ask about my resume or my experience or my references. She just looked at me with knowing eyes and said, "Tell me what happened. I do not know why I opened up to a stranger." Maybe because she was the first person in weeks who had shown me genuine kindness. Maybe because I was so exhausted and broken that I did not have the energy to pretend anymore. I told her everything, the affair, the divorce, the coordinated financial destruction, the way Patricia had systematically cut off every opportunity I had. When I finished, Carrie was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "My ex-husband cleaned out our bank accounts and ran off with his secretary 9 years ago. Left me with 3 kids and $20,000 of credit card debt. I built this restaurant by myself from nothing while raising those babies alone." She leaned forward. "You want a job? I will give you one. But I need you to understand something. I do not need your sadness. I do not need your anger. I need someone who is going to show up every single day and work hard. Can you do that?" "Yes," I said, "I can do that." That was how I became the assistant manager at Soul Sisters restaurant. The pay was not great, $14 an hour to start, with potential raises based on performance. But it was honest work, and Carrie was fair. More importantly, it gave me something to focus on besides the ruins of my former life. I threw myself into the job. I restructured the menu to cut costs by 23%. I negotiated better deals with suppliers. I created a social media presence that actually brought in new customers. Within 2 months, Soul Sisters was busier than it had been in years, Carrie noticed. One evening after closing, she sat me down and said, "Girl, you have a gift. This business stuff comes natural to you." I'd never thought of myself that way. I had always just been Naomi, the orphan, the woman who was not good enough, the wife who could not give her husband children. But Carrie saw something different in me. For the first time since the divorce, I started to feel like maybe, just maybe, I might be okay. Then two things happened that changed everything. First, I found a photograph while unpacking that one box of personal items I had been avoiding. It was a picture of my mother with a young man I barely recognized. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, it said, Harrison and Lily, 1989. My big brother, my best friend, Harrison, my mother's brother. I had not seen him since her funeral 18 years ago. I remembered fragments from that terrible day. Harrison arguing with my father's family, being told he was not family anymore, never seeing him again. For years I had assumed he wanted nothing to do with me. But looking at that photograph, at the love in his eyes as he smiled at my mother, I wondered if maybe I had been wrong. I started searching for him using the free computers at the public library. It took weeks, but I finally found a record. Harrison Stone, 64 years old, last known address in Scottsdale, Arizona, former career forensic accountant for the Internal Revenue Service. I spent $23 I could not afford on a bus ticket to Arizona. The second thing that happened was much worse. 3 months after starting at Soul Sisters, Derek's lawyer served me with a lawsuit. The accusation was theft of proprietary business information, corporate espionage. Derek claimed I had stolen client lists when I left the marriage and was using them to compete against his company. It was completely false. I had not taken anything. But defending myself would cost $50,000 or more in legal fees, money I absolutely did not have. I sat in Carrie's office that afternoon, staring at the legal papers, trying not to fall apart. Carrie read through the documents with a frown. This is harassment, she said. He is trying to bury you in legal fees. I know. Do you have a lawyer? I cannot afford one. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, you remember that pie I gave you on your first day? Yes, my grandmother made that recipe. She used to say that the secret to good pie is patience. You cannot rush it. You have to let things develop in their own time. I did not understand what she was trying to tell me. Carrie leaned forward. This man is trying to break you. But you are stronger than you know, Naomi. I have watched you work these past 3 months. You are smart. You are resourceful. You just need to stop thinking like a victim and start thinking like a survivor. How do I do that? You find help, real help. Not a rescue, but people who can teach you how to fight. She pointed at the photo of my uncle that I had been carrying around. Start with him. Find your family. 3 days later, I was on a bus to Arizona. Harrison Stone lived in a modest ranch house on a quiet street in Scottsdale. Not a mansion, not a penthouse, just a normal home with a well-maintained lawn and an American flag hanging by the front door. I stood on his porch for almost 5 minutes before I worked up the courage to knock. Part of me was terrified that he would not remember me. Part of me was terrified that he would. The door opened. A man in his 60s stood there, wearing a cardigan with a coffee stain on the front. His reading glasses were pushed up on his forehead. He looked so ordinary, so completely normal. Can I help you? He asked. I am Naomi, I said, Lily's daughter. Something changed in his face. His eyes went wide and then they filled with tears. He pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. And then he said something that made me cry for the first time since the divorce. I have been looking for you for 18 years. We sat at his kitchen table for hours, and he told me the truth about why we had been separated. After my parents died, Harrison had tried to get custody of me. He was single at the time, just starting his career with the IRS, but he loved his sister and he wanted to take care of her daughter. My father's family blocked him. They said he was unstable, unreliable, not fit to raise a child. They had more money and more lawyers, and Harrison could not afford to fight them. By the time he had the resources to try again, I had disappeared into the foster care system. He had spent years trying to find me. I never stopped looking, he said, but you kept getting moved around, and the records were sealed, and he shook his head. I am so sorry, Naomi. I should have tried harder. I reached across the table and took his hand. You are here now. That is what matters. Harrison listened carefully as I told him about my marriage, the divorce, and the lawsuit. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and studied me with those sharp eyes that had spent 30 years tracking down financial criminals for the IRS. Let me ask you something, he said. Do you think Derek's business is legitimate? I do not know. Why? Because in my experience, men who go to these lengths to destroy their ex-wives are usually hiding something. The lawsuit is not about what you might have taken. It is about what you might have seen. I thought about Derek's late nights, his secret phone calls, the strange business meetings he never wanted to discuss. What should I do? Harrison smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who had spent decades taking down white-collar criminals. I am not wealthy, ma'am, Naomi said. I cannot pay for your lawyers or rescue you financially. But I spent 30 years following money for the IRS. If your ex-husband is hiding something, I can teach you how to find it. Over the next month, Harrison became my teacher. He showed me how to trace shell companies through public records, how to read SEC filings and identify red flags, how to follow the money trail that every fraudster leaves behind, no matter how careful they think they are. And I was a good student. It turned out that my photographic memory for numbers, something I had never thought much about, was incredibly useful for forensic accounting. Working together, we discovered that Derek's company was $2.3 million in debt. He had been cooking the books for years, making the business look profitable when it was actually hemorrhaging money. The investment my grandmother's money had supposedly gone into, it did not exist. Derek had stolen it. Even worse, we found evidence that he was running what amounted to a Ponzi scheme, taking money from new investors to pay off old investors, all while skimming profits for himself. Derek Mitchell was a fraud, and if we could prove it, he would go to prison. But there was a problem. The evidence we found was circumstantial, suspicious, but not conclusive. To really nail him, we would need access to his internal financial documents, the kind of access we could not get legally unless he gave it to us voluntarily. I will figure something out, I told Harrison. I just need time. He nodded. Be careful, Naomi. Men like Derek are most dangerous when they are cornered. Do not underestimate him. I flew back home with a notebook full of information and a plan slowly forming in my mind. Meanwhile, the lawsuit was still hanging over my head like a guillotine. I could not afford to fight it. But Harrison had given me an idea. The lawsuit was about intimidation, not justice. Derek wanted to depose me under oath, find out what I knew, and drain my resources until I gave up. But what if I turned that around? I contacted Derek's lawyer, offered to settle. I would sign a non-disclosure agreement promising never to discuss Derek's business dealings publicly. In exchange, he would drop the lawsuit. Derek accepted immediately. That told me everything I needed to know. He was scared of what I might say. The NDA was not about protecting his reputation. It was about keeping me silent. I signed the agreement with a smile, because here is what Derek did not understand. The NDA prohibited disclosure. It said nothing about investigation. I could keep digging as long as I wanted. I just could not talk about what I found. Yet, while all of this was happening, Soul Sisters was thriving. With the changes I had implemented, the restaurant was making more money than it had in years. Carrie was so impressed that she offered me a partnership, 20% ownership in exchange for my continued work turning the business around. I accepted. For the first time in my life, I owned something that was truly mine, something nobody could take away. But I knew this was just the beginning. I had a taste of what I could build, and I wanted more. Over the next 8 months, I worked harder than I had ever worked in my life. During the day, I helped Carrie expand Soul Sisters. We opened a second location, then a third. Each one was more successful than the last. At night, I continued my investigation into Derek's business. Harrison and I talked on the phone every week, comparing notes, building our case. And slowly a plan began to take shape. Derek was desperate for investors. His Ponzi scheme was running out of steam. He needed a major cash injection to keep everything from collapsing. What if I gave him exactly what he was looking for? It took 3 months to set up the perfect trap. Harrison and I created a fake investment company called Apex Capital Partners. We built a professional website, created fake LinkedIn profiles for imaginary executives, set up a Google Voice number that forwarded to a burner phone. Then we reached out to Derek's company, expressing interest in making a substantial investment. Derek was desperate enough to take the meeting without doing much due diligence. His financial situation was worse than we had realized. He was weeks away from complete collapse. Harrison went to the first meeting posing as Henry Stone, senior partner at Apex Capital. He played the role perfectly. Cool, professional, wealthy, everything Derek aspired to be. And Derek opened his books. It was voluntary. Nobody forced him. He handed over financial documents, tax returns, internal records. Everything we needed to prove he was running a fraud. Over 3 more meetings, we gathered evidence of securities fraud, tax evasion, and embezzlement of investor funds. Enough to send Derek to prison for years. We were ready to report everything to the SEC. And that is when everything went wrong. During what was supposed to be our final meeting, Derek's accountant, a nervous man named Gerald, who had been in the room for every meeting, suddenly froze. He was staring at Harrison with a strange expression. "Wait," Gerald said. "I know you. You investigated my old firm back in 2008. You are Harrison Stone from the IRS." The room went silent. Derek's face transformed from confusion to rage to cold calculation in about 3 seconds. "Well," he said slowly, "this is interesting." Within 24 hours, Derek had figured out everything. He knew Apex Capital was fake. He knew I was behind it. He knew I had been investigating him for months. And he knew that I had signed a non-disclosure agreement. Derek did not just sue me again, he went scorched earth. First, he filed criminal fraud charges against me. Creating a fake company to deceive someone was illegal, his lawyers claimed. I had committed wire fraud and conspiracy. Second, he filed a civil lawsuit against Soul Sisters, claiming the restaurant had been part of my conspiracy to destroy his business. Third, he launched a media campaign. Within days, I was being painted as a bitter ex-wife stalker, a crazy woman who could not accept that her marriage was over. The headlines were brutal. Jilted ex-wife's elaborate revenge scheme uncovered. Restaurant manager accused of corporate espionage. Scorned woman's obsession turns criminal. Everything I had built came crashing down. I was arrested on a Tuesday morning. The police came to my apartment at 6 a.m., put me in handcuffs, and walked me out past my neighbors, who had gathered to watch. Someone was filming on their phone. I spent 8 hours in jail before Carrie could post my bail. When I got back to Soul Sisters, half our staff had quit. Customers were canceling reservations. Our investors were pulling out. 3 years of work, destroyed overnight. Carrie met me in her office. Her face was exhausted and hurt. "Sean, I trusted you," she said. "I brought you into my business, made you a partner, and you brought this to my door. I know, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." She shook her head. "Sorry does not fix this, Naomi. Sorry does not bring back my customers or my reputation." I did not know what to say. She was right. I had been so focused on revenge that I had put everything and everyone I cared about at risk. I went home that night to my empty apartment. No friends, no allies, no hope. I picked up my phone and called the only number that still gave me comfort, my grandmother's old answering machine. I had kept the number active, paying $15 a month just to hear her voice. "Hi, you have reached Dorothy. I am either in the garden or pretending not to be home. Leave a message." I sat there listening to her voice on repeat, crying so hard I could barely breathe. That night, I seriously considered giving up. Not just the fight against Derek. Everything. I sat in my car for 2 hours in the parking lot of my apartment building, thinking about how easy it would be to just stop, to let go, to disappear. If you have ever been in that dark place, please hear me. That voice telling you to give up, it is lying. It is the exhaustion and the pain talking, and it is not telling you the truth. I called Harrison. He answered on the first ring, even though it was 3 in the morning in Arizona. "What do you need?" "I need you to tell me this is not over." There was a pause, then he said, "It is not over. They made a mistake, a big one." "What mistake?" "They are so busy celebrating that they forgot to check whether you actually violated the NDA. Did you ever publicly disclose what you found?" I thought about it. No, Apex Capital never released any information. We were gathering evidence, not disclosing it. Then technically, you have not breached anything. The NDA prohibits disclosure, not investigation. And their criminal fraud case, It requires proving intent to deceive for financial gain. You were not trying to steal money. You were gathering evidence of crimes. That is not fraud. That might not be a crime at all. There was another pause. And Naomi, while Derek was busy suing you, he forgot that everything he showed to Apex Capital is now evidence. Evidence you gathered legally. He voluntarily handed over those documents. He waived confidentiality. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair, hope. The wedding invitation arrived on a Thursday afternoon. I was at Soul Sisters going over the quarterly numbers with Carrie when the mail carrier dropped off a stack of envelopes. Most of it was bills and junk mail. But there, in the middle of the pile, was a cream-colored envelope with elegant calligraphy. My name, my address, and in the corner, embossed in gold, the Mitchell family. My hands started shaking before I even opened it. Derek Mitchell and Jessica Lawson request the honor of your presence at their wedding celebration. The Grand Plaza Hotel, Saturday, June 15th, 6 o'clock in the evening, reception to follow. I stared at that invitation for a long time. The Grand Plaza Hotel, the most expensive venue in the city, the same place where Derek and I had talked about renewing our vows someday, the same place where he had taken me for our 5th anniversary, 2 months before I discovered his affair. He was getting married there, to her. And they wanted me to watch. Carrie looked over my shoulder and sucked her teeth. The audacity, she said, the absolute audacity of these people. I could not speak. There was a handwritten note tucked inside the invitation. I recognized Patricia's handwriting immediately. Naomi, darling, I do hope you will join us for this special occasion. It would mean so much to Derek to have closure, and I think it would be good for you to see what a proper wedding looks like. After all, yours was so small. No hard feelings, of course. We are all adults here. I read that note 3 times, feeling the rage build inside me with each word. No hard feelings, after everything they had done to me, after stealing my money, destroying my reputation, trying to bury me in legal fees. No hard feelings. Girl, Carrie said slowly, watching my face. What are you thinking? I am thinking, I said carefully, that I am going to attend this wedding. Carrie's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me? They want me there. They want to see me broken and defeated, sitting in the back row, crying into my champagne while they celebrate. They want the satisfaction of knowing they won. And you are going to give them that? No, I looked at her. I am going to give them something they will never forget. That night, I called Harrison. I told him about the invitation, about Patricia's note, about the plan that was slowly forming in my mind. The newspaper story, I said. When is Margaret planning to publish? She said she needs another 2 weeks to verify everything. Maybe 3. The wedding is in 3 weeks. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. You want the story to drop on the wedding day, Harrison said. It was not a question. I want Derek to wake up on the happiest day of his life and realize that everything is about to fall apart. I want him to stand at that altar, knowing that his company is being investigated, his investors are pressing charges, and his entire world is crumbling around him. That is cold, Naomi. Is it? After what he did to me? After what he did to those 14 victims? After Ruth's husband died, not knowing his retirement was gone? Harrison was quiet for a moment. I am not saying he does not deserve it, he finally said. I am just making sure you understand what you are doing. This is not just about justice anymore. This is personal. It was always personal. From the moment they ambushed me in my own living room and told me I came into this marriage with nothing, and that is what I would leave with. From the moment Jessica put her hand on her pregnant belly and smiled at me. From the moment Patricia laughed at me on the phone. I took a deep breath. They wanted me to be their victim. They wanted me to disappear quietly and let them live their perfect lives. But I did not disappear. I built something. I have found the truth. And now I am going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Derek Mitchell really is. Another pause. Then Harrison said, I will call Margaret tomorrow. We will make sure the timing is perfect. The next 3 weeks were the longest of my life. Every day I went to work at Soul Sisters and pretended everything was normal. Every night I went home and reviewed documents, double-checked timelines, made sure every piece of evidence was in order. Margaret called me twice to verify details. The SEC had opened an informal inquiry based on an anonymous tip. The class action lawsuit was ready to file the moment the story went public. Everything was falling into place. But I would be lying if I said I was not scared. What if something went wrong? What if Derek found out and stopped us somehow? What if the story did not have the impact we hoped? What if I walked into that wedding and froze, unable to go through with the plan? 3 days before the wedding, Carrie found me in my office at 2 in the morning, surrounded by papers. "Girl," she said, "you need to sleep." I cannot. Every time I close my eyes, I see Patricia's face. I hear her voice. I keep thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Carrie sat down across from me. "Let me tell you something," she said. "When my ex-husband cleaned out our bank accounts and left me with 3 kids and $20,000 of debt, I did not sleep for 6 months. I was terrified every single day. Terrified I would lose my house. Terrified I could not feed my children. Terrified that I would fail. What did you do?" I kept going, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time if I had to. I told myself that fear was just my brain trying to protect me from getting hurt again. But I could not let fear make my decisions. I had to make them myself. She leaned forward. "You have done everything right, Naomi. You found the evidence. You built the case. You have a team of people ready to support you. Now you just have to trust yourself enough to see it through." "What if I am not strong enough?" Carrie smiled. "Honey, you are the strongest person I know. You just do not see it yet." The morning of the wedding, I woke up at 4 a.m. I could not go back to sleep, so I made coffee and sat by my window, watching the sun come up over the city. In a few hours, Margaret's story would go live. In a few hours, everything would change. My phone buzzed at exactly 5 a.m. It was a text from Margaret. "Story is live. Check your email." I opened my laptop and navigated to the newspaper's website. There it was, front page of the business section. Local real estate developer accused of multi-million-dollar fraud. 14 victims come forward with devastating allegations. The article was everything we had hoped for. Margaret had verified every detail independently. She had interviews with victims, financial records, expert analysis. She had traced the shell companies, documented the fake investments, exposed the Ponzi scheme structure. And she had included a timeline showing that Derek had been defrauding investors for over 5 years, including the entire duration of our marriage. I sat there reading the article, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, tears of relief. The truth was finally out. By 7 a.m., the story was trending on social media. By 8 a.m., local news stations were picking it up. By 9 a.m., the SEC announced they were opening a formal investigation. By 10 a.m., Derek's biggest remaining investor issued a statement saying they were reviewing their relationship with Mitchell Development Group. And by noon, I was getting dressed for a wedding. I chose a red dress, not designer, but perfectly fitted. The color of confidence, the color of fire. Carrie came over to help me get ready. "You look amazing," she said, stepping back to admire her work, like a woman who is about to change the world. "I just want to change one man's world," I said, "and watch him realize he made the biggest mistake of his life. You ready?" I looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman looking back at me. 3 years ago, I had been broken, defeated, sitting in a tiny apartment above a laundromat wondering if life was worth living. Now I was about to walk into my ex-husband's wedding and watch everything he had built come crashing down. I am ready. Harrison picked me up at 2 o'clock. He was wearing a suit I had never seen before, sharp and professional. "You look like a billionaire," I told him. He smiled. "That is the idea." We had discussed the plan 100 times, but we went over it once more in the car. The victims who had agreed to attend the wedding knew what to do. They would wait until the reception after Derek had given his toast. Then they would stand up, one by one, and tell their stories. Harrison would deliver the final blow. The medical records proving Derek's infertility. The evidence that the baby Jessica was carrying could not possibly be his. And I would be there to watch it all unfold. "Nervous?" Harrison asked. "Terrified," I admitted. "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just remember why you are doing this. For the victims. For yourself, too. He glanced at me. There is nothing wrong with wanting justice for yourself, Naomi. You deserve it just as much as anyone else. We pulled up to the Grand Plaza Hotel at 3:30. The parking lot was already filling up with expensive cars. Guests in designer outfits were making their way toward the entrance, laughing and chatting like they did not have a care in the world. None of them had seen the news yet, or if they had, they did not believe it. That was about to change. I took a deep breath, opened my car door, and stepped out into the afternoon sun. Time to crash a wedding. Walking into the Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom was one of the hardest things I have ever done. The room was decorated like something out of a fairy tale. White roses everywhere, crystal chandeliers casting soft light across hundreds of guests, a string quartet playing classical music in the corner, an elaborate ice sculpture shaped like two swans with their necks intertwined. It must have cost a fortune stolen from innocent people. Every head turned when I walked in. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me, judging me, pitying me, wondering why on earth the ex-wife would show up to watch her replacement get married. I heard the whispers. "Oh my God, is that her? I cannot believe she actually came. Did you see that article this morning? About Derek? Poor thing, she probably does not even know." I kept my head high and found a seat near the back of the room. Within minutes, Patricia materialized at my side. She was wearing a pale blue mother-of-the-groom dress that probably cost more than my first car. Her face was frozen in that society smile I knew so well, but her eyes were cold with hatred. "Naomi," she said through clenched teeth, "how lovely that you could make it. I would not miss it for the world, Patricia." She leaned in close, her voice dropping to a hiss. "I do not know what you think you are doing here, but I promise you, if you cause any trouble, I will make you regret it." "Trouble? Oh, I smiled sweetly. "I am just here to wish the happy couple well. You invited me, remember?" Her eye twitched. "That newspaper article this morning," she said. "I know you had something to do with it. I do not know what you are talking about. Do not play innocent with me. I know exactly who you are and what you are capable of." I looked her directly in the eyes. "No, Patricia, you have no idea what I am capable of, but you are about to find out." She stared at me for a long moment, trying to read my expression. Then she turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. I watched her go, my heart pounding. The ceremony was scheduled to start at 4 o'clock. That gave me 30 minutes to find the other victims who had agreed to attend. I spotted Ruth Anderson near the bar, nursing a glass of water. She was 78 years old, had lost her husband's entire pension to Derek's fraud, and had the sharpest tongue of anyone I had ever met. Our eyes met across the room. She gave me a small nod. I found Frank Morrison near the dessert table. He was 52, a former contractor who had invested his life savings with Derek on the promise of 12% returns. He had lost everything. He nodded too. One by one, I made eye contact with the other victims scattered throughout the room. The Hendersons, a retired couple from Florida. Maria Santos, a single mother who had invested her daughter's college fund. James Whitfield, a Vietnam veteran who had trusted Derek with his disability payments. They were all here. They were all ready. At 4 o'clock, the string quartet shifted to the wedding march. Everyone stood. Jessica appeared at the back of the room, radiant in a designer wedding gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. Her pregnant belly was clearly visible under the flowing fabric. She was smiling, tears of joy already forming in her eyes. She had no idea what was coming. Derek stood at the altar, watching his bride walk toward him. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, every inch the successful businessman. But even from where I was standing, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept darting toward the exit, the slight tremor in his hands. He had seen the news. He knew something was wrong. But he was too proud to cancel the wedding, too arrogant to admit that his perfect day was already falling apart. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke about love and commitment and building a life together. Derek and Jessica exchanged vows. His voice cracked once or twice, but he covered it well. When they exchanged rings, I noticed Derek's phone buzz in his pocket. He ignored it, but I saw his jaw tighten. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Do you, Derek Mitchell, take Jessica Lawson to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And do you, Jessica Lawson, take Derek Mitchell to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. They kissed. Everyone applauded. Patricia was crying what she probably thought were tears of joy. George looked uncomfortable, as always. The guests were smiling and cheering, and I sat in the back row waiting. The reception started at 5:30. Champagne was poured. Appetizers were served. Guests mingled and congratulated the happy couple. Derek was trying to maintain his composure, but I could see the cracks forming. His phone had not stopped buzzing since the ceremony ended. Every few minutes, someone would pull him aside to whisper something in his ear, and his face would go a little paler. The news was spreading. People were starting to ask questions. At 6 o'clock, Derek stood to give his toast. He tapped his champagne glass and waited for the room to quiet down. Thank you all for being here, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling around him. This is the happiest day of my life. I watched him carefully. He was good. He was a professional liar, after all. He had been lying for years. When I first met Jessica, Derek continued, I knew she was special. She saw something in me that my ex-wife never could. She believed in me. She supported me. She gave me hope for the future. I felt my hands clench into fists. There are people in this world who try to tear you down, Derek said. People who are jealous of your success. People who cannot stand to see you happy. But tonight I want to say to all of them, you failed. Because I am standing here with the woman I love, surrounded by friends and family, and nothing can take that away from me. He raised his glass. To new beginnings, he said, to leaving the past behind, and to building a future with the right person by your side. Everyone raised their glasses. Then Ruth Anderson stood up. The room went quiet. Excuse me, Ruth said, her voice carrying across the ballroom. I have something I would like to say. Derek's smile faltered. I am sorry, ma'am, but this is a private event. If you could please sit down. Private? Ruth walked toward the front of the room, her heels clicking against the floor. You made it my business when you stole my husband's pension fund, Mr. Mitchell. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I do not know what you are talking about, Derek said, but his voice had gone thin and reedy. My husband Walter invested $93,000 with your company. You promised him safe returns, guaranteed income for our retirement. Ruth's voice cracked. He died 6 months later, not knowing that every penny was gone. He died thinking he had provided for me. And you took it all. This is ridiculous, Derek sputtered. Security. Someone call security. But before anyone could move, Frank Morrison stood up. I invested $50,000 with you, Frank said. My entire life savings. You showed me fake statements for 2 years. You told me everything was fine. And when I finally asked for my money back, you told me there had been some unexpected losses and I would have to wait. He took a step forward. I am still waiting, Mr. Mitchell. Then Maria Santos stood up, and James Whitfield, and the Hendersons. One by one, the victims rose from their seats and told their stories. Derek's face had gone completely white. This is a setup, he shouted. This is my ex-wife trying to destroy me. She is crazy. She has been stalking me for years. He pointed directly at me. She is behind all of this. Do not believe a word these people say. The room turned to look at me. I stood up slowly. I am not behind anything, Derek. These people came here of their own free will because they want justice. Because you stole from them and lied to them and destroyed their lives. I walked toward the front of the room. You want to know why I am really here, I continued. I am here because 3 years ago, you and your family ambushed me in my own living room. You stripped me of everything I had. You told me I came into this marriage with nothing, and that is what I would leave with. I stopped a few feet from the altar, looking directly into Derek's eyes. And you were right, I did leave with nothing. No money, no home, no family. Nothing but a broken heart in a tiny apartment above a laundromat. I let that sink in. But here's what you did not count on. I did not stay broken. I rebuilt my life from scratch. I found my uncle who taught me how to follow the money. I found business partners who believed in me. I found victims who were brave enough to tell their stories. Derek was shaking now. actually shaking. And I found the truth about who you really are, Derek. Not a successful businessman, not a loving husband, not a pillar of the community, just a thief, a liar, a con artist who stole millions of dollars from innocent people. The room was completely silent. Then Harrison stepped forward. "There is one more thing," he said, holding up a document. Derek turned to face him, his face twisted with rage. "Who the hell are you?" "My name is Harrison Stone. I am Naomi's uncle, and I am a retired forensic accountant with the IRS." He held up the document so everyone could see. "This is a medical report from 3 years ago. It shows that Derek Mitchell was tested for fertility issues. The results showed irreversible sterility due to a childhood illness." The room exploded in whispers. Jessica's face went white as a sheet. "That is a lie," Derek screamed. "That document is forged." "It is from your own doctor," Harrison said calmly. "Dr. Raymond Peters, the same doctor who has been subpoenaed in the SEC investigation. He was very cooperative when he realized he might face charges for helping you defraud your investors." Derek spun to face Jessica, his eyes wild. "It is not true," he said. "Do not listen to them. They are trying to destroy us." But Jessica was not looking at him anymore. She was looking down at her pregnant belly. "Derek," she whispered, "you told me you wanted children. You said we were going to start a family. We will. This is all lies." "If you are sterile," Jessica said slowly, "then whose baby am I carrying?" The room went absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Jessica's face crumbled. Tears started streaming down her cheeks. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Patricia screamed, actually screamed, a sound of pure rage and disbelief. Derek grabbed Jessica by the shoulders. "Whose baby is it?" "I had a one-night stand," Jessica sobbed, "before we were together, before we were official. I thought if I told you it was yours, you would stay. I thought you would never find out." "I am so sorry, Derek. I am so sorry." Derek stumbled backward like he had been shot. The perfect wedding had become a perfect disaster. Patricia was shrieking at Jessica, calling her every name in the book. George was trying to calm her down, but she pushed him away. Guests were pulling out their phones, recording everything. The string quartet had stopped playing. The waiters had frozen in place, and Derek Mitchell stood in the middle of his own reception, surrounded by the wreckage of everything he had built. His company was being investigated by the SEC. His investors were pressing criminal charges. His bride had just admitted that the baby she was carrying was not his. His mother was having a complete breakdown, and his ex-wife was standing 10 feet away, watching it all unfold with a calm expression on her face. Derek turned to look at me. His eyes were filled with hatred, pure, undiluted hatred. "You did this," he said. "You destroyed everything." I looked at him for a long moment. "No, Derek, I just showed everyone who you really are. You destroyed yourself." Then I turned and walked out of the ballroom. Behind me, I could hear Patricia screaming, Jessica crying, guests shouting questions, security trying to restore order. I did not look back, not even once. The video went viral within hours. Someone at the wedding had recorded the entire confrontation on their phone and posted it to social media. By midnight, it had over 1 million views. By morning, it was on every news channel in the country. Ex-wife exposes groom as fraud at his own wedding. Wedding day disaster. Billionaire developer's empire crumbles in real time. Victims confront scammer at reception. Bride admits baby is not his. I did not watch any of the coverage. I did not read any of the articles. I did not check social media. I just went home, took off that red dress, and slept for 14 hours straight. When I woke up, I had 237 missed calls, 512 text messages, and over 3,000 emails. Everyone wanted to talk to me. News stations, podcast hosts, documentary producers, book publishers, everyone. I ignored all of them. Instead, I called Carrie. "Girl," she said when she answered, "what in the actual hell happened last night?" I told her everything. The victims standing up one by one, Harrison revealing Derek's infertility, Jessica admitting the baby was not his, the complete collapse of Derek's perfect day. When I finished, Carrie was quiet for a long moment. "How do you feel?" she finally asked. "I thought about it," Really thought about it. Empty, I said. I thought I would feel triumphant, victorious, but I just feel empty. That is normal, Carrie said. Revenge always feels hollow afterward. The anticipation is better than the reality. Then why did I do it? Because those victims deserve justice. Because Derek needed to be stopped before he hurt more people. Because you needed to prove to yourself that you were not the broken woman they tried to make you into. She paused. And maybe a little bit because it felt good to watch that smug bastard's face when he realized his whole life was falling apart. I almost smiled. Maybe a little bit. Now what? Carrie asked. Now I go back to work. I build my business. I live my life. I move on. That simple? I thought about everything I had been through. The divorce, the betrayal, the tiny apartment, the lawsuit, the investigation, the wedding. No, I said, not simple at all, but necessary. The next few months were chaotic. Derek was arrested 3 weeks after the wedding. The SEC investigation had uncovered enough evidence to charge him with 17 counts of securities fraud, 5 counts of wire fraud, and 3 counts of tax evasion. Combined, he was facing up to 40 years in federal prison. His lawyers tried at every trick in the book. They filed motion after motion, trying to delay the trial, trying to suppress evidence, trying to discredit the victims. None of it worked. The evidence was too strong. The testimony was too compelling. The public outrage was too intense. In the end, Derek took a plea deal. He pled guilty to 12 counts in exchange for a reduced sentence. The judge gave him 18 years. I did not attend the sentencing. I had already moved on. But I did watch the news coverage that night. I watched Derek being led out of the courthouse in handcuffs, his head bowed, his expensive suit wrinkled. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, like a balloon with all the air let out. Patricia was there, standing on the courthouse steps, giving a statement to reporters. "My son is innocent," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "This is a witch hunt. That woman, his ex-wife, she orchestrated all of this. She will pay for what she has done." But nobody was listening to her anymore. The evidence was too overwhelming. The victims' stories were too compelling. Derek Mitchell was guilty, and everyone knew it. Patricia and George lost their home a few months later. They had invested their retirement savings in Derek's company, and now it was all gone. The last I heard, they were living in a one-bedroom apartment in a rundown part of town. George had finally left Patricia, unable to deal with her constant rage and blame. Jessica gave birth to a baby girl 7 weeks after the wedding. She named her Emma. The father, a bartender she had met at a party, wanted nothing to do with the child. He signed away his parental rights without a fight. Jessica was struggling. She had no money, no support, no skills. The Mitchell family had cut her off completely. She was working as a waitress at a chain restaurant, trying to make ends meet while raising a newborn alone. Part of me felt sorry for her. She had made terrible choices, but she was also a victim in her own way. Derek had used her just like he used everyone else. But I did not reach out to her. Some bridges are too burned to rebuild. Meanwhile, my life was transforming in ways I never could have imagined. The publicity from the wedding disaster had put Soul Sisters on the map. People came from all over the city to eat at the restaurant owned by the woman who took down Derek Mitchell. Our weekend brunch had a 3-hour wait. We were being featured in food magazines and television segments and national newspapers. Carrie and I opened 3 new locations that year, then 4 more the year after that. By the time Derek's trial concluded, Soul Sisters had 15 restaurants across the Southeast. I had gone from owning nothing to being the chief strategy officer of a multi-million-dollar company, and I had done it myself. Not because a rich uncle had rescued me, not because I got lucky, because I worked hard, made smart decisions, and refused to give up. But the business success was only part of the story. The real change was inside me. For years, I had defined myself by my losses. I was the orphan, the woman who could not have children, the ex-wife who was not good enough, the victim. But I was not a victim anymore. I was a survivor, a builder, a fighter. I was someone who had been knocked down to the absolute bottom and had clawed her way back up through sheer determination. And that was worth more than any amount of money. 6 months after the wedding, I started Second Chance Kitchen. It began as a small idea. I wanted to help people who had been through similar experiences. People who had lost everything and needed a fresh start. people who felt like the world had given up on them. I partnered with local community colleges to create a restaurant industry training program. We taught cooking skills, management skills, customer service skills. We helped people build resumes and prepare for interviews. We connected them with restaurants that were willing to give them a chance. Our first class had 12 students. 8 of them found jobs within 2 months of graduating. By the end of the year, we had trained over 150 people. I had found my purpose, not revenge, not success, not proving anyone wrong. My purpose was helping other people find their second chances, just like I had found mine. 2 years after the wedding, I was giving a speech at a charity event when my phone started buzzing. Unknown number. I ignored it and continued my presentation. The event was a fundraiser for Second Chance Kitchen, which had grown into something far bigger than I ever imagined. We now had programs in 12 cities across the country. We had trained over 2,000 people. We had partnerships with major restaurant chains who had committed to hiring our graduates. And tonight we were raising money to expand into 5 more cities. The ballroom was filled with donors, business leaders, and politicians. People who believed in our mission, people who wanted to help. When I think about where I was 5 years ago, I told the audience, I can barely recognize that woman. She was broken, hopeless. She had lost everything and everyone she cared about. She was sitting alone in a tiny apartment, wondering if life was worth living. I paused, letting the words sink in. But here is what that woman did not know. She did not know that her lowest moment would become the foundation for her greatest achievement. She did not know that the people who had tried to destroy her had actually set her free. She did not know that the pain she was feeling would one day become the fuel for something beautiful. I looked out at the audience. Second Chance Kitchen exists because I got a second chance. And I believe everyone deserves that opportunity, no matter what they have been through, no matter what mistakes they have made, no matter how far they have fallen. When I finished, the audience gave me a standing ovation. Afterward, a young woman approached me. She was 24 years old, had aged out of foster care the previous year, and was about to graduate from our culinary program. I want to thank you, she said, her eyes brimming with tears. Before I found Second Chance Kitchen, I did not think I had a future. I thought people like me did not get second chances. Everyone deserves a second chance, I told her. I needed one too, not that long ago. Can I ask you something? Of course. How did you do it? How did you keep going when everything fell apart? I thought about that question for a long time. I found people who believed in me, I finally said. My uncle, my business partner, a few good friends. I did not do it alone. Nobody does. The secret is being willing to accept help when it is offered and being willing to help others when you can. She nodded slowly, absorbing my words. And one more thing, I added. I stopped defining myself by what I had lost. I started defining myself by what I was building. That shift in perspective changed everything. Thank you, she said, for everything. After the event, I checked my phone. The unknown number had left a voicemail. I played it while walking to my car. The voice that came through the speaker made me stop in my tracks. Naomi, it is Derek. I stood there in the parking garage, frozen, my phone pressed to my ear. His voice was different, smaller somehow, tired, defeated. I know you probably do not want to hear from me, but I needed to tell you something. I am sorry. I know that does not mean anything now. I know it does not fix what I did, but I am sorry. There was a long pause. I have had a lot of time to think in here, about the choices I made, about who I became. I told myself for years that I was just doing what I had to do to succeed, that everyone bends the rules sometimes, that you were holding me back and I deserve better. Another pause, longer this time. I was wrong about all of it. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw it away for money and status and a family that never actually cared about anything but image. I could hear him breathing on the recording. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not deserve forgiveness. But I needed you to know that I understand now. What I did, who I hurt. I understand, and I am sorry. The message ended. I stood there in the parking garage for a long time, staring at my phone. For 5 years, I had imagined this moment. Derek, broken and humiliated, finally admitting he was wrong, finally acknowledging what he had done to me, finally saying the words I had waited so long to hear. In my imagination, it had felt triumphant, satisfying, the ultimate victory. In reality, it just felt sad. Sad that it had taken him prison to see the truth. Sad that he had wasted so many years hurting people. Sad that we had both lost so much time to anger and resentment and pain. I got in my car and sat there for another 20 minutes trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to delete the message and pretend it had never happened. Derek Mitchell was in the past. I had moved on. Why reopen old wounds? But another part of me knew that was not quite true. The wounds were not completely healed. They never would be. And maybe, just maybe, there was one more thing I needed to do to finally close this chapter of my life. I called him back. He answered on the first ring. Naomi? His voice was hesitant, scared, like he could not quite believe I had actually called. I got your message. Long silence. I did not think you would call back. Neither did I. Another silence. I meant what I said, he told me. I am sorry for everything, for the affair, for the divorce, for trying to destroy you afterward. For all of it, I believe you. You do? He sounded genuinely surprised. Yes, I can hear it in your voice. You have changed. 5 years in prison will do that to you. I imagine so. Can I ask you something? He said. You can ask. I might not answer. Fair enough. He took a deep breath. How did you do it? How did you build all of this after everything I put you through? I see the news sometimes. I read about your restaurants, your charity. You have accomplished more in 5 years than I did in my entire career. How? I thought about the question. I stopped letting you define me, I said. For a long time, I was the woman Derek Mitchell threw away. The woman who was not good enough. The victim. But that is not who I am. It never was. You just made me believe it for a while. Another silence. I made a lot of people believe a lot of things, Derek said quietly. That was always my talent. Convincing people to see what I wanted them to see instead of what was actually there. Yes, you did. I am trying to change that. In here, there is a program, counseling, group therapy. Learning to take responsibility for who I really am instead of who I pretended to be. It is hard, harder than anything I have ever done. But I am trying. That is good, I said. That is more than a lot of people do. Naomi, he said, I need you to know something. That day in the courthouse when the judge sentenced me, I was angry at you, at the system, at everyone. I blamed everyone but myself, but then I got here, and I met people who had done far worse things than me, and I started to realize that I had been given so many chances, so many opportunities to change, and I wasted all of them. He paused. You were one of those chances, maybe the best one I ever had, and I threw you away because I was too stupid and selfish to see what I had. I did not know what to say. I am not telling you this because I want anything from you, Derek continued. I know we are done. I know there is no going back. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost. Thank you for telling me, I said. Thank you for listening. There was one more thing I needed to say. One more thing I had been carrying around for 5 years. Derek, I said, I forgive you. Silence, you do? Yes, I forgive you for the affair. I forgive you for the divorce. I forgive you for trying to destroy me afterward. All of it. I do not deserve that. Probably not. But I am not doing it for you. I am doing it for me. I do not understand. For 5 years, I have been carrying around anger and resentment. It kept me going for a while. It gave me fuel, but it also held me back. Every time I thought about you, every time I remembered what you did, I felt that anger again, and it was exhausting. So you are just letting it go? I am letting it go, not because you have earned it, Not because what you did was okay, but because I refuse to let you take up any more space in my heart. I have better things to fill it with now. Another long silence. You really have changed, Derek said. The Naomi I married never could have done that. I smiled. The Naomi you married does not exist anymore. You killed her, but someone better rose from the ashes. I hope I can do the same someday. I hope so too, Derek. I genuinely do. Goodbye, Naomi. Goodbye, Derek. I hung up. For a long moment, I just sat there in my car, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. Weight I had not even realized I was still carrying. Then I started the engine and drove to Sunday dinner at Uncle Harrison's house. 7 years have passed since that phone call. 7 years of building. 7 years of growing. 7 years of becoming someone I never imagined I could be. Derek served 12 years of his 18-year sentence before being released on parole for good behavior. I do not know where he is now. I do not follow his life. I do not check up on him. That chapter is closed. I hope he found peace. I hope he built something meaningful with whatever time he has left. But honestly, I do not think about him very often anymore. I have better things to focus on. Patricia passed away 4 years ago. A stroke, according to the obituary. George had left her years before, unable to live with her bitterness and rage anymore. She died alone in a nursing home with almost no one at her funeral. I thought about attending. Part of me felt like I should be there, if only to confirm that it was really over. But in the end, I decided against it. Patricia Mitchell had taken up enough of my life. She did not deserve any more of it. George remarried 2 years ago, a kind woman from his church named Helen. From what I hear, he is happy now. Maybe the happiest he has ever been. Funny how things work out sometimes. Jessica eventually got her life together. After years of struggling, she went back to school, got her nursing degree, found a job at a children's hospital. She is raising her daughter, Emma, alone, and by all accounts, she is doing a good job. We crossed paths once about 3 years ago. She was at a restaurant I was visiting for a business meeting. Our eyes met across the room, and for a long moment, neither of us knew what to do. Then she walked over to my table. Naomi, she said, can I talk to you for a minute? I nodded. She sat down across from me, looking nervous. I have wanted to say this for years, she said. I am sorry for everything, for Derek, for the wedding, for all of it. I was so desperate and stupid, and I hurt you badly. I know that. I studied her face. She looked different, older, more tired, but also more real somehow. Like the mask she had been wearing for so long had finally come off. I forgave Derek, I said. I suppose I can forgive you too. You forgave him? Yes. A few years ago. It was not for his benefit. It was for mine. She shook her head slowly. I do not know if I could do that. Forgive someone who hurt me that badly. It took a long time and a lot of therapy, but holding on to that anger was destroying me from the inside. I had to let it go, or it would have eaten me alive. Jessica was quiet for a moment. I think about that day all the time, she said. The wedding, everything falling apart. I was so humiliated, so angry. I blamed you for years, and now I understand that you were just telling the truth. The truth I did not want to hear. The truth Derek had been hiding from everyone, including himself. She looked down at her hands. I wasted so many years being the wrong person, chasing the wrong things, wanting status and money instead of something real. Derek was never going to make me happy. I knew that deep down, but I wanted so badly to believe the fairy tale. I think a lot of us fall into that trap, I said. We want so badly to believe in something that we ignore all the warning signs. How did you get out? I hit rock bottom. And then I started climbing. One day at a time. She nodded slowly. Thank you, she said, for talking to me, for not throwing a drink in my face. I almost smiled. The thought crossed my mind. She laughed, a real laugh, the first genuine thing I had ever heard from her. Take care of yourself, Jessica. You too, Naomi. She left. We have not spoken since, but I think about that conversation sometimes. About how people can change. About how rock bottom can be the foundation for something better, if you are willing to do the work. I hope Jessica found her second chance. I hope Emma grows up knowing that her mother fought to become a better person. Everyone deserves that chance. As for me, Second Chance Kitchen has now trained over 10,000 people. We have programs in 47 cities across the country. We have partnerships with major restaurant chains, community colleges, and government agencies. We have helped thousands of people find jobs, build careers, and transform their lives. Last year, we were featured in a documentary about workforce development. The year before that, I was invited to speak at the White House about economic opportunity. 2 months ago, I received an award from the National Restaurant Association for my contributions to the industry. None of it feels real sometimes. Soul Sisters has 123 locations across the United States. Carrie retired as CEO 3 years ago, but she still comes into the original restaurant every morning for coffee. She says she cannot stay away. The regulars would not know what to do without her. I am the CEO now, not because anyone gave it to me, not because I got lucky, because I built it, because I earned it, because I refused to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. Uncle Harrison still lives in that little house 20 minutes from my condo. He is 77 now, and his health is not what it used to be, but his mind is as sharp as ever. We still have Sunday dinner every week. He still complains that my coffee is too weak. Last month, he showed me something he had been working on for years. It was a scrapbook. Newspaper clippings about Soul Sisters, magazine articles about Second Chance Kitchen, photos from charity events and award ceremonies. Every interview I had ever given, every story that had ever been written about me. I have been collecting these since the beginning, he said. I wanted to show them to your mother. I did not understand at first. Then I saw what he had written on the first page. For Lily, look what your daughter became. I cried so hard I could barely see. I never got my fairy tale. The prince turned out to be a con artist. The castle was built on stolen money. The happily ever after was nothing but a beautiful lie. But you know what? I built something better. I built a company that employs over 5,000 people. I built a nonprofit that has given 10,000 people a second chance at life. I built a family, not the traditional kind, but a family nonetheless. Harrison, Carrie, the hundreds of people I work with who have become like brothers and sisters to me. I built a life, and that life is everything. People sometimes ask me what I would say to my 32-year-old self. The woman sitting in that apartment above the laundromat, crying into her grandmother's answering machine, wondering if there was any point in going on. I would tell her this. The pain you are feeling right now is real. The hopelessness is real. The loneliness is real. I am not going to pretend otherwise, but it is not the whole truth. The whole truth is that you are stronger than you know. The whole truth is that there are people out there who will love you and support you and believe in you if you give them the chance. The whole truth is that this moment, as dark as it feels, is not the end of your story. It is just the beginning. You are going to build something amazing, not because someone rescues you, not because you get lucky, because you work hard and refuse to quit and learn to ask for help when you need it and offer help to others when you can. You are going to make mistakes. Some of them will be big ones, but you will learn from them and keep moving forward. And one day you are going to stand up in front of a room full of people who are going through their own dark moments. And you are going to tell them your story, and you are going to watch their faces light up with hope. That is what survival looks like. That is what success looks like. That is what revenge really looks like when you do it right. Not destruction, not hatred, not bitterness, but building a life so full and so meaningful that the people who tried to break you become nothing more than a footnote in your story. Derek Mitchell took 4 years of my life. If I had let him, he could have taken the rest of it too. I could have spent decades being angry, being bitter, being consumed by the desire to make him pay. Instead, I built 123 restaurants. I helped 10,000 people find their second chances. I found a family I never knew I had. I created a life I never imagined was possible. The best revenge is not destroying your enemy. The best revenge is becoming so busy building your own life that you forget you have enemies at all. But I will tell you a secret. If they happen to destroy themselves while you are busy thriving, that is just karma. And karma, as it turns out, is very, very patient. So if you are going through something hard right now, if you are at your lowest point, if you feel like there is no way forward, please hear me. There is a way forward. It is not easy. It is not quick. It will require everything you have and then some, but it exists. And on the other side of that darkness is a life you cannot even imagine yet, a life full of purpose and meaning and love, a life that is yours and yours alone, a life that is everything. I know because I am living it. And if I can find my way there, so can you.